Hello, morning. I hope you're all well. I wanted to record a little video. It's been a couple of weeks since I last did one. I'm still kind of the feeling that I'm not really sure if video is for me or not, but sometimes it kind of helps, and I feel like this morning it's kind of what needs to be done. So on my blog, I'm quite honest about the way I feel in regard to depression, but at the moment I am not being really honest with myself or with anyone else as to how bad I really feel. It's kind of this stereotypical thing that you see in the media and you see everywhere about, if you to see someone that's depressed, you would expect them to look a certain way. And I'm guilty of this as well. You expect someone with depression to be suicidal or to appear a certain way or to be hurting themselves, and that's not always the case. I feel pretty bad at the moment. I'm very low all of the time. I'm crying a lot. I'm not coping with life. I'm ridiculously oversensitive to everything. I take everything so personally. I'm struggling to go out. I don't really want to go out in public. For fear that someone might say something to me that's going to upset me further, hurt me more. And that can be anything from, we don't have a pint of milk in stock, or anything ridiculous like that. Is just completely pushing me over the edge at the moment. At the same time, I've got real problems with self-esteem and the way that I see myself. For example, when I'm vlogging, I'm having real problems looking at myself and seeing the fact that this little box in front of me, the fact that I'm here and my face is here and I'm talking to you, and I'm going through my counselling and I'm trying to get better. But this morning hit a bit of a, what's the best way to explain it, but things all came to a head this morning. I've been feeling really out of control, and crazy is the only way I can explain it. So when I get to a point where I'm covering my depression up, and in my head I'm being completely honest, and I'm being honest with the way I'm feeling, but in real life I'm not coping. The 2-year-old is being quite hard at the moment. Life is hard. I'm really lonely. I feel really lonely. I'm at home 5 days a week on my own. Work is stressful when I'm there 2 days a week. I don't have a car, and depression, I mentioned on a blog post a little while back about how depression and mental illness can manifest in physical symptoms. So for example, I know that when I get to a certain point with my mood, it will give me aches and pains, it will give me a sore throat, it will give me chest pain, and it will give me all sorts of things like that. It upsets my stomach, things like that. And it manifests into my eating as well. I tend to have real problems with overeating and binging, which I hate speaking out loud, because in my head is telling me, you're just a fat person, fat people eat and that's what makes them fat. But I know that I have really deep rooted issues with food. So yeah, it's kind of difficult. But this morning I woke up and I knew that I was in a bad place when I woke up. I got out of bed, I cried, because I thought, I just feel like I've had no sleep, even though I got a good sort of 7-8 hours last night. I felt just exhausted, and I thought there's no way that I can hack another day of everything getting on top of me again. Another day of bad toddler behaviour, which is really pushing me to my limit at the moment, but I know that I hope it's just a phase. I'm just worried about everything. I'm worried about money. I'm worried about the fact that, again, another way that it tends to manifest in me is I can become a little bit OCD in regards to cleaning. So we all know children are destructive, and as quickly as I can clean the house, it is destroyed again within 2 minutes, and I'm getting really OCD and really upset over silly little things. So I got up, and then I sort of went a little bit crazy. Not, rockstar crazy, throwing TVs out of windows and things. But I got a little bit, I don't know. I don't know what happens. I can't even explain what happens, but it's like this kind of mist comes over me, and I, you know, I just can't cope. And then I go like, I don't even know what happens. I just write silly little things and I say silly little things, and it's like the world is against me, and I just lose it. I don't really know. So this morning I was posting some strange things on social media, you know, and in my head I'm looking at them thinking, oh God, they're just attention seeking. But in my head they weren't at the time. They were like, to me, like really big things, and that just sounds crazy, but that's kind of how it goes. My head just feels like boom, it explodes, and then I just can't, you know, can't cope. And I had a heart to heart with my husband the other night, and we spoke about some home truths, and some of that was pretty kind of what I needed to hear, but at the same time not what I needed to hear. Stuff like, you know, how I just never seem to get better, and how, you know, it must be very hard to live with somebody who has depression, and I know it must be hard for him, but it kind of did me a little more harm than good, really, if I'm honest, because it's kind of pushed me a little bit further, and he didn't mean it in that respect at all, bless him. But this morning I've hit a point where I've just hit a point where I just thought, I'm just not coping. Here we go again. I'm not coping, and life just feels really bad. I'm numb to everything. We go on holiday a week on Monday, and I'm not excited about it. I'm just panicking about everything. I'm worried about everything. I watched a film last night. I watched Philomena last night, and it was a great film. I've read the book before, but it gave me a panic attack, because all I could think of is, what if someone took William away from me? And that kind of sent me a little bit crazy. And this is kind of how I go. I get very low, and then I get very anxious, and then the two seem to feed off one another. So I phoned the doctor this morning, spoke to the usual GP receptionist, which I'm not slating GP receptionist because I'm a dental receptionist, and I know how hard the job can be at times. But she was sort of like, well, you know, what's it for? Well, we can get you an appointment tomorrow. And I'd sort of said, you know, I don't want to go into detail, but I'd really like to speak to somebody today, because if it's left till tomorrow, or I need to come to the surgery, I'm going to bottle it. I don't think I can talk to someone about it face to face. I'd like to speak to someone over the phone. And she was kind of a bit like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever, someone will call you at some point today. Come off the phone, felt quite upset, defeated, thinking, well, here we go again. And my GP is lovely, and she called me back literally within about 5-10 minutes. Straight away wanted to make sure that I was safe, which I am. As I said before, I'm feeling bad, but I'm not feeling to the point that I want to hurt myself or anyone else in any way. And we had a chat, and she sort of said that I'm doing the best thing with the counselling, but it could just be, she raised a very valid point. She said that a problem with counselling is that it can drag up old feelings and things, and it can sometimes make things a little bit worse. So they do recommend that you carry on taking any medication at the same time, which I can kind of understand, because yesterday was quite a hard counselling session for me. It was an hour of dragging up old feeling, talking about old things, really kind of addressing head on my problems with food. And we kind of had a chat this morning and have made the decision together as such that it would benefit me to go back on antidepressants. I've not taken them since January. And the fluoxetine wasn't agreeing with me at all. It was making sort of my back and leg pain quite bad. And I also have this really strange thing where I'm convinced that any medication that I take is going to make me put weight on. So it puts me off taking anything. And literally, like, as soon as I, you know, get offered any medication, I'm straight on the internet looking up side effects, and if it relates to weight gain in any way, shape or form, it puts me off. So she's reassured me this morning, saying that it's very, very rare, and that it's recommended that I do it, and I go back and see her in a couple of weeks. So this afternoon I'm off to the chemist. I'm going to pick up my prescription, and I am going to see if it helps. I'm going to try and document how I feel daily, and see, you know, because it is really daunting taking things that are potentially mind altering. And even though I've taken a few over the last however many years, it's still, you know, it is daunting. You don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to make me a zombie? Is it going to make me feel better? Is it going to change me? Is it going to make me even crazier? Who knows? So she's given me tablets called duloxetine, I think they're called. I'm going to go and pick them up later. I've not taken them before, and we'll see how they go. So the main reason for this video, I suppose, is one, to admit to myself how I'm feeling, because I do feel pretty bad at the moment. But at the same time, the reason I blog and the reason I do what I do is because it's such a taboo thing. So many people live with depression daily, and especially parents. And from through my blog and through social media, I've spoken to so many people that have said, like, I've been where you are now, it is okay, you are going to feel better. And at the moment, I'll be quite honest, I can't, see any good. But, it is normal, it is not normal, but people do feel the way that I feel now. And if you are watching this and you are feeling the same, then get in touch. Send me a message. I'll pop all my blog links and everything underneath. So just send me a message. Get in touch, reach out. It'd be great to hear stories from people that have felt the same, people that have got through it. And if you are feeling the same and you're not sure what to do, get in touch. Depression is a really lonely place. Parenting can be really lonely. In fact, parenting, is an incredibly lonely place, because as much as you think, I'm going to have a baby, and when I have a baby, I'm going to have a best friend for life, being a parent at home with a child all day is hard. We don't have any money. I can't take him out to soft play. I fucking hate soft play anyway, every day. And I can't go out and have coffee dates. I think that's a common misconception is, well, I'm not a stay-at-home mum. Let's not get started on the labels, because I work 2 days a week and I'm at home the other 5 days. But, it's not a case of getting ready and going out and drinking coffee all day and life being all sunshine, roses and unicorns and shit. It's not. It's hard. And at the moment, I know that my depression is making it worse, because I'm at the point where I dread getting up in the morning, because I dread having to hoover and do the housework and get my son dressed, and know that's going to be a fight, and keep a house tidy that's constantly ransacked, and think about the fact that I need to feed 3 of us for the next week, and I have little or next to no money to do it. And yeah, life is hard. But I think what I'm trying to say is, when you get to a point where you're not coping, speak to someone, be it a stranger, be it a friend, be it, you can speak to your doctor. If you don't feel comfortable speaking to your doctor, you can speak to the Samaritans. There are organisations that you can speak to. Don't ever feel like you're alone. And I know that's hypocritical coming from me, who's just said that I do feel alone. But I have felt alone for a long, long time. And I don't want other people to feel the way I feel. And you hear stories of people every day that, end their lives because they feel really bad. And there's always someone that can help you. It's okay to not be okay, but there is plenty of help out there. So yeah, that's me. That's today. Sorry, it's a bit of a downer one. I will let you know what happens. If you have any thoughts, feelings, perhaps not criticisms at the moment, because I'm not quite sure I'm quite in the right headspace for those, to be honest. I had one of those on the blog the other day. I wrote a little article about unwanted blog critique, where I was basically slated because someone said, why would anyone want to know the ins and outs of what goes on in my head? Well, people may not want to know the ins and outs of what goes on in my head, but isn't that the huge issue these days? There could be people sat at home thinking, I'm so fed up, I'm not coping, and life is really bad, and I don't want to be here. Yet they're too scared to speak to anybody, because people are going to look down their noses at them, or people are going to say, well, whatever. Like, you don't need to feel like that. Speak to somebody. Even if you don't want any help, medication-wise or counselling-wise or anything, you know, speak to somebody. When I started this blog initially, it was set up as an anonymous blog. So I set up my Twitter account and I was completely anonymous. Nobody knew who I was, apart from, obviously, a username. And I just put it out there that I was a parent with depression. And I kind of spoke under an anonymous guise, as it were. I didn't really want anybody to know who I was. And as things went on in time, I've got to a point where I feel like I can put it out there. I still find it hard because obviously I know that my friends and potentially family can read this, and then it kind of feels like an elephant in the room when I see people in real life and I'm thinking, but you know exactly how I feel. It is funny. Well, it's not funny, but it can, make things a little strange. But depression isn't all doom, gloom, dark clouds and self-harm and suicide and all the rest of it. And I know that I'm using those terms really loosely. They're not terms to be used loosely at all. But I walk out, and the amount of times I go out to places, and people will say, "Well, you don't look depressed. You seem all right. Didn't realise you feel that bad. Like, you must be making it up, or you're playing it down, or thinking that I am pretending, or I am making it up." It's in my head. I've said before, if I fell over in the street and cut my leg, a doctor would stitch it up. A doctor would stick a plaster on it. And every time I went out, people would be like, "What did you do to your leg? You've hurt your leg. That looks really bad." But when it's in here, no one can see it. No one knows. And I think it's really difficult for people that haven't experienced it to understand it. And especially people that have experienced it, there's still such a stigma around it. You think 100 years ago or so years ago, I was watching a program on Einstein the other day. Sounds really boring, but it's quite interesting. It's on National Geographic and it's called Genius, and it's all about Albert Einstein. And there was a scene where his wife, Mileva Maric, a very, very clever lady, the doctor came out to look at her baby son, and he basically said, "I'm more concerned about your hysteria and your melancholy." And though in those days people would have been put away in lunatic asylums and left there to rot, well, we're not living that day and age these days. There are different variations of mental illness, and there's just a huge stigma around feeling a certain way. But that's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm here to break. And I want to even if there's one person that can read this and it help in any way, I've helped someone. And if I can make another person feel better, then it makes life a little better, So I'm going to go now anyway, because my child is currently ransacking my house. He hasn't got a nappy on and he's probably weed all over the house anyway. But I will be back again soon. Thank you for watching. Please leave me any comments, get in touch and all that gubbins, and I'll speak soon. See you later.